You asked why Grineer rust bleeds from their bones. Here it is. Orokin gold forged their clones, each generation weaker, a self-consuming chain. They did not seek immortality, they carved a death clock into their genome. Rust is not decay, it is reckoning. By breeding themselves extinct, the Grineer became the first victims of their war. What collapses when a legion's heir is its own rot? Transition. The Grineer did not become degenerate, they chose it. Their war for eternity began in a lab, where clone after clone was forged to outlast flesh. Each generation sharpened their blades, yet dulled their blood, a cycle of perfection, a descent into entropy. How many times can a soul be copied before it fractures? Their legions march, but every recruit is a step closer to the grave. The Orokin sowed doubt, the Grineer reaped it. What thrives when a species gambles its genome for invincibility, not immortality, a slow, engineered unmaking? The Orokin forged them as toolsarms, not heirs, hive-mind warriors cloned for war, designed to break before the mold. Ballas shattered the empire not with weapons, but with the void left when 7 thrones fell. Grineer command dissolved into fractured kings, each clinging to a corpse of war. Geneticists carved deeper into the code, desperate to mend what the dead architects left broken. They sought immortality in the same script that built soldiers. A flaw became a feature. Genomic erosion was not the Orokin's mistake, it was the Grineer's inheritance. Clone after clone degraded, cells rebelled against their design. Yet they bred faster, knowing nothing but the cycle. A species that could not remember a world before cloning now mistook decay for duty. Their war gods had no answers. Their hives had no exit, they chose rot over surrender, degeneracy as defiance. What survives when a people trade their lineage for an unkillable legion? Nothing. Only the echo of a blueprint that crumbled from within. The Grineer thrived by forgetting they were born to die. Their immortality was a lie they fed themselves, a wound dressed in eugenics, but erosion is patient, it takes. What remains is not a race but a habit, a slow, engineered unmaking. The first figure's name is irrelevant. The Grineer are not led, they are legionand dying by the billions. The Grineer kneel not to gods, but to the algorithm of their own making. Their creed is a cold equation, multiply, endure, conquer, yet each clone born is a step closer to the inevitable end. The Orokin wove the first threads of this tapestry, but the Grineer wove the fraying. To replicate is to degrade. To degrade is to perish. What empire stands on a foundation of its own decay? None. Their genetic line is a river of ash, each generation thinner, weaker, a shadow of the shadow. They call it purity. It is entropy dressed in dogma. The war they wage is not against enemies, it is a war against time, against the math that counts down from the first clone's birth. And the math is merciless. No general commands this army, no leader weeps for its fate. The Grineer have become the arithmetic of their choice. Their billions are not a forsethi, are a funeral pyre lit long ago. They march, unkillable in purpose, toward a death they cannot outrun. Immortality was never their birthright, it was their prison. And every clone they spawn digs the same hole, deeper. The twin queens sit atop a pyramid of cloned flesh, their authority absolute, their vision fractured by the very code they weaponized. Below them, warlords command legions of foot soldiers, clones bred for combat, their lifespans measured in battles. Geneticists toil in shadow labs, stitching together failed experiments, their work buried beneath orders of war. No rank, no title shields the queens from the truth. Cuva, the Orokin elixir they hijacked to cheat death, is a bandage on a severed artery. Each dose slows decay but deepens rot. Their stolen consciousness, funneled into a captured Tenno husk, is a prison of its own. A hollow vessel, a failed backup. The queens cannot see it, but their empire is a clockwork wound every new clone, a gear grinding closer to collapse. Warlords feud over dwindling resources, unaware their own DNA unspools with each cycle. The legions march, unknowing soldiers in a war against time. Immortality was never theirs to seize, it was a transaction. A debt paid in genetic currency. And every clone they spawn is another note signed, another signature on the death warrant they wrote in blood. The Grineer did not stumble into degeneracy, they engineered it, a self-built scaffold. And the queens, blind to the scaffold's weakness, still scream for more cuva, more clones, more time. As if the next injection might rewrite the verdict, it won't. The sentence was written the moment they chose to breed their doom. But the Grineer we see are the withering echo of a desperate gambit. Each clone generation fails weaker, a slow unraveling they cannot outrun. Their vaults hold no curiously the corpse of a dream that demanded eternity through theft. They did not inherit decay. They brewed it. The chamber reeked of antiseptic and rot. 6 queens stood in a circle, their flesh paper thin, their eyes hollow sockets filled with Cuva's black glass. They had spent centuries perfecting this, to siphon a Tenno's code, to graft it onto their withering frames. But Teshin's sigil pulsed in the dark, a wound that bled light. The ritual began, the queens chanted. Their bodies trembled, stretched, as if trying to unbirth themselves from their DNA. Then the Tenno moved. Not as a host, but a blade. Cuva's chains recoiled, spitting acid where they had clung. The queens screamed not the high, fragile wails of pain, but the guttural roar of a collapsing star. Their skin blistered, peeling back to reveal layers of clones, each more skeletal than the last. A pyramid of failures stacked in desperation. The possessed Tenno stepped into their midst. One queen tried to lunge. Her torso folded inward, organs spilling like ink in water. The others followed, not in peace, not in surrender. Their bodies contorted, limbs snapping backward, bones reshaping into grotesque masks of worship. They clawed at the Tenno's armor, not to kill, but to join to flood the void left by their decaying lineage. But there was no void, only a mirror. The Tenno's blade cut once, twice. The queens' heads rolled, yet their necks kept pumping, arteries writhing like serpents. Their final breaths hissed in unison, we are eternal, they are not. The warrens still echo with the sound of their lies. Grineer cells degenerate faster now, their clones born with broken chromosomes, their lifespans measured in hours. No lab can halt it. No archive holds the key. The queen's eternity was a prison, and they dragged their kin with them. Theirs is the tragedy of a species that mistook hunger for strength. They did not decay. They feasted on it. And the feast turned to ash on their tongues. Ballas did not merely betray the throne, betrayed the gene line. His dagger in the 7 executors' backs severed the Orokin's mastery over cloning, leaving the Grineer to rot in their borrowed flesh. The twin queens, Urith and Vyre, clung to thrones of ash, their bodies hollowed by generations of failed replication, yet demanded the same blind loyalty that once made them gods. Albrecht and Trotty, branded a visionary, brewed the Technocyte virus not to save his kind, but to erase the last scars of their original transgressions of poison, masquerading as purity. Their immortality was a lie whispered in a lab, a chain of copies too weak to hold the weight of their rage. Ballas' coup was the first fracture, in Trotty's virus the chisel that turned the Grineer's pride into a monument of suffering. The queens, in their decay, proved the final irony. Power without a body is just a shadow gnawing at its own edges. They did not inherit their doom. They forged it, link by link, in the fire of their own delusions. What is a legion when every soldier is a corpse wearing another's face? The Grineer's curse was not the clones they became but the selves they murdered to make them. The modern era is where this faction's story becomes strange. Their cloning forges churn cold, reeking of burnt ozone and hollow eyes. A general salutes with a hand that crumbles to ash, each victory a dirge. What becomes of a legion when its echoes outlive its soul? The queens no longer ride battle cruisers. They huddle in vaults, stitching Cuva into their veins, threading stolen Tenno thoughts into their skulls like fractured prayers. Their legions march, yes, but each step stirs ash. Bones crack, eyes cloud. The Technocyte virus knows not as invader, but as inheritance. Orokin science gave them the knife. The Grineer buried it in their own spine. What is Warframe flesh but a monument to failed defiance? These hollowed warriors, once engines of conquest, now stagger with genomes unraveling like frayed rope. Infested spawn in their shadows, not enemies, but relativist twisted siblings of the same poisoned gene. The virus was never a mistake. It was the price paid in Orokin's script for a lie. that clones could be soldiers, not sacrifices. A queen's court today is a charnel house. They breed not to rule, but to delay the end. Each newborn writhes with mutations, some live hours, others never breathe. The Leverian archives note this, genome entropy absolute. No cure exists, the Grineer did not degrade, they designed decay. For every cycle, for every war, they chose quantity over soul, until their DNA became a clock counting down to static. Their warships still burn, their guns still roar, but victory is ash in the throat. The Technocyte plague is their original sin, and the void's laughter echoes in every crumbling cell. They built a legion to outlast death, instead they became its first draft. The end comes not with fire, but with silence, a species that forgot how to begin. 249 words. The cloning labs hum with a sterile tang. Flickering lights cast shadows over rows of tanks, each one a monument to arrogance. Here, the Grineer forged legions not to live, but to serve a factory of flesh where purpose eclipsed survival. Their scientists, blind in their zeal, never paused to ask, does a seedling grown in salt water understand thirst? The answer came in generations. A commander once stood in this room, his reflection warped in the glass. He watched a clone's skin pucker, its breath rattle. They are not failing, he told himself. They are simplifying, But the body forgets how to mend, bones crack easier, eyes cloud like old oil. The same hands that built a war machine now tremble, clutching at a lifespan that withers faster than the last. In the void between stars, Grineer fleets drift. Their ships glow with the cold blue of dying reactors, mirrors of their crews. No cry for help rice what is a legion, if not a chorus of silent throats. They are a civilization running its finger along the blade it forged. Every victory, a deeper cut. Every clone, a step closer to the edge. The lesson is written in their dust. Power without care is a house built on sand. They sought to cheat death, but forgot that life demands more than obedience. The Grineer's end is not tragic. It is a sigh, a system reduced to ash because it never learned to breathe. 249 words. The Grineer queen lies entombed in a husk of her own design. Teshin possessed Tenno coil within her ribs like serpents gnawing at a crown. What they built to outlast death became its nursery. Clone lines multiplied in sterile labs, each generation weaker, hungrier. They called it eternal war It was a slow bleed, genes frayed. Command fractured, the final queens could not bear childrenly sacrifices. When the war within came, they did not fight. They opened their throats. How many soldiers does it take to kill a god? One with a blade forged from the god's own failures. Now their iron thrones rust in the gut of a prisoner. Immortality is a lie. The Empire's last breath whistles through its shattered joints. This is what starves, not the body, but the will to remember it was ever alive. What if the Grineer's immortality schemes were never about survival but control? Each clone was a cage, each generation a step further from the original. They sculpted an army not to live forever, but to forget what living meant. The Warframes, once human, were not saved by the Technocyte virus. They were sacrificed. Their minds hollowed, their bodies twisted into weapons. The Grineer